other ways, certainly from the standpoint of payroll taxes. If he has employees, and I'm sure he does, there's SUTA taxes that the employer only pays. There's SUTA taxes stands for State Unemployment Tax Association, SUTA, Federal Unemployment Tax Association.
Okay.
So SUTA and FUTA taxes are only paid by the employer, by the business. So I'm not going to say he didn't pay any taxes, probably didn't pay any taxes, but I will say if you had a net operating loss and a zero balance on your federal taxes, then you did not have a federal tax that produced revenue for the country, and that revenue that was produced for the country to be utilized the way that they had planned to outlay those cash outlets. But there still are, for a business owner, and remember I said there are phases of business owners. Solopreneurs, they're not getting the payroll tax. But when you start getting into being an entrepreneur where you have staff and employees, then there are other taxes that you're still paying, and those payroll taxes become part of them from that standpoint. And then there's, if you have a product, you've got sales tax that, but obviously the customer is really paying the sales tax from that standpoint. So there can be personal property taxes. When you own assets, you're paying property taxes. Of course, that's staying in the local area from that standpoint. And so that's kind of where I go. But on the flip side, to be very transparent and to be fair, there are lots of folks that if you're also on the side of it, that let's say you're a low wage maker or you're below the poverty line of income, then what happens there, you get a nice earned income credit because you have multiple children. You get a large refund. Where did that refund come from? So we've got two things happening. We've got the low poverty income level that's paying no taxes. Then we flip to the other side of the spectrum, and we got multiple billion-dollar enterprises not paying taxes, and then we have the people left in the middle that are trying to bring this thing together, who somehow get left paying the taxes.
This is Marquita Miller. If you guys, and I know she's based in Kansas City, but I'm assuming you got clients all over the country. You guys need to Marquita Miller, MarquitaMiller.com. The name of your business. Give us the name of your business and the website. Make sure they know how they can reach you.
Yes, absolutely. The name of the business is 5-Star Tax and Business Solutions, and we are you can reach us by connecting on the website www.stkc.com. That's STKC.com. So 5-Star Tax and Business Solutions is the name. I'm very active on social media at Marquita M. Miller, MARQUITA, Marquita M. Miller. You can connect with me via social media, website, or even contact in our office. Our office is 816-444-0004. That's 816-444-0004. We're coming up upon that October 15th tax deadline date. That should mean something to you. If you are an individual that filed an extension, that should mean you should be getting ready to file your taxes. That's right.
And two things before we go that I want to talk about. And one thing that I'm very passionate about, two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about nonprofits and ministry and taxes. And I definitely want to talk about your coaching and media and that stuff, because we want to make sure your conferences and stuff, we talk about that. One thing that kind of gets under my skin is when people look at ministry and churches and mega churches and whatever, and they always say, well, they don't pay any taxes. They 501(c)(3). They taking advantage of the community. Creflo dollars up here, and the neighborhood around the church is in shambles. Why didn't he give more money to the community? Talk to us about your perspective on that as a tax person. Here's my perspective, right? Who else is in that neighborhood around Creflo Dollar's church? McDonald's, Walmart, Popeye's Chicken, tire places, a whole lot of businesses is in that neighborhood that also, if that's what you're going to look at, that they're not doing enough, quote unquote, for the neighborhood. But at the same time, you can walk in the world, in world changes week in and week out, get that word, change your life every week, and walk out of there and don't pay any tithes and offering, and nobody's going to stop you from coming and going. But talk to us about your perspective, being someone of faith who's a professional in this space. Help us to understand what that 501(c) status means, and how much a church really contributes to a community.
That's a great question, because I leave in Atlanta on Saturday. I had an opportunity to go through, I believe it's South Atlanta, and over by the federal penitentiary.
Okay.
We were just had some time killed before going to the airport, and so we kind of rolled around. And I was telling my husband, I just for this, I said, it is becoming a day with churches that my first comment, to be very transparent, was I said, I think that there does need to be some kind of give back to the community. Then I thought about it. I said, well, you know what? No, because it's quite possible that you can have a church in a certain community, but their population of attendance is not from that community.
Absolutely.
So then I said, well, you know what? Maybe it should be more so based upon the demographics of the people that attend that ministry, where they come from, that it should go back to maybe their areas. And the reason I said that, and I don't have the solution, I don't necessarily know, but for me to say that statement to come from me, what I began to see riding through some of those areas was churches in very plighted areas.
Yes.
And even for myself, being a board member, and I have to go to a lot of community events, and I'll go, and I was at a church that was very, very nice church. And I walked outside and to go get in my car. I had never been to this church before. I came in one way, came out the front way, and to go get in my car, and I see a house across the street. The windows is busted out. A little baby's coming out the driveway. They got a water hose running to the neighbor, and my heart was moved. Yeah. And I began to say, how can you sit in this church, walk in this church every day, and you see that, and you don't say you have a solution for that? So I do have to say, there are some things that are churning in me, and I haven't been, it's so funny you bring this up, because I haven't completely been able to foster where I'm going with that, but I do know there is responsibility. Now, what I will say that churches, having the 501c3 does allow you to not have to pay federal taxes, which is another, similar situation. But what I will tell you is what is supposed to happen. Here we go back to ethically. What is supposed to happen with the profits? Because let's be clear. Just because you have a 501c3 does not, and you're not for profit, does not mean you're not supposed to make profit. There are some very profitable not-for-profit. The difference is for that organization is what they're supposed to do with their profits. So I do have a problem if I see a church that 50% or let's just say 80% of what comes in, $1.80 of that dollar goes back out to salaries. I'm not kind of feeling that arrangement, to be very honest, to be very transparent.
Say that again. No, repeat that. Repeat that again. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So let's say for every dollar that comes in, so $1 comes into the revenue.
Yeah.
80 cents of that dollar is spent in salaries. That only means 20 cents is left for, and it probably ain't even left for programs. It's left for administrative costs. That's not a good system for tax exempt, in my opinion.
Okay.
If we're going to be tax exempt, you took a stand that there was something you were supposed to be doing. You had a tax exempt purpose that you were going to empower, financial empowerment, whatever your purpose was. And this for not just churches, for non-for-profits, period. Whatever it is you're supposed to be supporting, I want to, as a donor, and I'm a major contributor in our church. I want to know, and I want to see that my dollars are going to the fundamental thing that we said we would do. Now, being a business person, do I understand that it takes money to make money? Absolutely. Do I understand that it takes people to run programs? Absolutely. But we have to figure out a way where there's a greater percentage. That, to me, 20% going to admin and 80 going to salaries and 0 going to programs, we got a problem. That's not a good solution.
Right. Agreed.
That's not a good solution. And I will be honest, there are churches that start off in that. You can find yourself in that scenario. So you didn't hit my hot spot now. You can find yourself in that scenario where more revenue was coming in at one point in time, and you were giving out money to programs. But when revenue decreased, you did not decrease your salary because of loyalty. So I don't want to make light that just because people are in that scenario, that means that they're a bad ministry. No, it could just mean the revenue decreased. They're believing God to increase the revenue so that they can get back to what they're doing. But I always say in business, period. In business, it's about making hard decisions quickly. And that does not exempt the church from making those same hard decisions quickly. If your revenues decrease, you need to decrease your salary. period, so that you can continue to do the thing that you said you were supposed to be doing from the beginning. And so I am very adamant about that. But also I will tell you that churches are the place where we come together to connect and to be better. And what I mean by that is and every church is not, just like every business doesn't do everything, every church doesn't do everything. But what your church does, it should be effective. I can tell you, our church, we do have some outreach programs with helping with homeless and overseas, but that's not our core. Our core, when you come to our church, you're going to learn to fish. And when you learn to fish, you're going to be a better person in the community so that you can help people. So we birth a lot of business owners that are able to, if you're a business owner and you start a business, you're able to employ people. So that's another way. Yes, it may not sound as sexy as a church that's, feeding 1,000 homeless people. But if I'm giving 1,000 people a job, hey, let's kind of balance out the difference here. So you have to be where your strength is. You have to be true to who you are, what you said you were going to do. But I do think that you need to, every not-for-profit needs to sit down at some point and say, let's assess, are we effective at what we said we were doing, and are we helping some community, and how are we doing that? If you're empowering people and you see that they're becoming prosperous, they're starting businesses, they're starting not-for-profits, they're major funders, they're people that are very active in the community, great, you've done your part. But if you are standing there existing in your tithes and offering, you can't show what you've done. The people attending your church aren't prosperous. The people attending your church need resources. The places around your church need resources, and there's no positive, then that's a problem for me.
Whew, you said a mouthful, but you have made taxes. You have made taxes so interesting, and I see why they like to keep you on television there in Kansas City, and you on different networks, and nobody's got you locked into an exclusive and all that type of stuff. See, now you talking. Now you in my wheelhouse, because I've been in media for almost 20 years. Last thing before we go, how have you done it? Your business is growing. And I know how you've done it, but because your energy is outstanding, you're giving great nuggets, great sound bites, actionable steps. But how have you, for someone who is a burgeoning speaker or a longtime speaker who has something to bring to their particular communities, talk to us about how your success track of being able to get all these media engagements and your relationship with Black Enterprise and things like that.
Well, first, and as you already alluded to, you already know that I am a woman of faith. And so, it's faith over fear every day. I mean, and fear shows up, but I just say it's faith over fear, and I just keep stepping. So, and I understand my why. And when you understand your why, just like these organizations, why do you exist? I'm challenging not-for-profits to say, why do you exist? Are you effective at that? As a person, we need to ask ourselves the same question. Why do I exist? And am I being effective at that? And so when you ask yourself, why do you exist? And when you answer that, then how do you get that message out? How do you do more of that? How do you become a greater asset? My dad would always say that you're either an asset or a liability, and you get to choose every day. And so you've got to figure out, how do you get your message? And when in the midst of that, for me, I know that my purpose is to help to empower people to prosper. And so with that, I just began to look. I spoke for Bishop Jake several times for his conferences, and been very fortunate to do that. And so one thing that he's big on is about bundling. How can you fulfill your purpose in various ways? And so for me, and smartly, I started to think, I could sit down and talk with one person one-on-one, face-to-face. But at some point, I'm not going to have a marriage. My children are going to be out of sort because there's only so much time. So I can reach more people. Like I was on Channel 5 yesterday. I'm reaching thousands of people by talking to them about money management for one 20-minute segment. Or, I don't even think it's 20 minutes. It's like 10-minute segment. I'm reaching thousands of people. So, and I will tell you the key to that is relationships. Just even being on your broadcast. You and I got connected. We didn't know each other, but because of the relationship and the encounter that I had with Pastor Howard, and guess what? I didn't know him until if it wasn't for my Bishop Howe. But I wouldn't have done I'm sure there were opportunities along the way when I was working with Pastor Howard that I could have been snotty, I could have been not responsive. And guess what? He would have saw that I was in Dallas and we were at the Black Enterprise Conference, and he would have never said for us to connect.
That's right.
But you have to take care of relationships. You don't know who you people know, and you don't know when you will need people to connect you. So if you treat everybody right as much as possible, then it will serve you back up right. And so I'm real big on fostering relationships, taking care of them. You talk to people before you need them, and value before you need to. You talk